Hi, my name is Shoshana Steiner. I'm going to be verbally giving this presentation over for my husband who just had oral surgery and give this presentation himself, but wrote everything up for me, so hopefully I do an okay job. So let's begin. So he did this project on the discovery of oxygen. It's by Elliot Steiner, and throughout the entire presentation, you're going to be learning about the history and some experiments that were done in order to prove the project, as well as some videos and how it was discovered. According to Kuhn, a shift in professional commitments to shared assumptions takes place when an anomaly subverts the existing tradition of scientific practice. These shifts are what Kuhn describes as scientific revolutions. The tradition shattering complements to the tradition bound activity of normal science. Kuhn describes anything that is earth shattering to be a revolution. So, this quote was actually taken from the textbook, which was called The Structure of Scientific Revolution. So the discovery of oxygen is definitely plays a large role in science because of its discovery. It led to many different paradigms and other revolutions. History. So in this category, we're going to be going over the history of oxygen, which talks about who discovered oxygen and Priestley's finds. Who actually discovered oxygen? So, who actually found it and discovered it? There's an argument as to which scientist really discovered oxygen. Was it Priestley or was it Lavoisier? Priestley, without a doubt, discovered oxygen, although Lavoisier discovered a gas, which we now refer to as oxygen, but never reported such a find. Lavoisier only reported the revolutions he found with them. So Priestley discovered it, and Lavoisier pretty much just gave a name to the gas that was discovered. Priestley's finds. Historically, discovering oxygen was not easy, nor was it simple. Priestley started by taking a sample of regular air and capturing it into a small jar. He then realized that it had a mixture of different substances, such as different gases. He came to this realization after doing many different experiments with plants and animals. Priestley came to the discovery of oxygen. Priestley's claim, to the discovery of oxygen is based upon his priority in isolating a gas that was later recognized as a distinct species. This quote was actually from the British Medical Journal called The Discovery of Oxygen. Priestley had to run many tests and theories in order to come to his conclusion on oxygen and him discovering it. Because of oxygen's many components, it led to many different scientific revolutions, such as combustion. Experiments. Okay, so in this category, you're going to be seeing two helpful videos and experiments that help the discovery of oxygen and help kind of prove it. Experiments that help discover oxygen. One of the first conducted experiments that Priestley conducted and how he learned to understand the importance of oxygen was he took two candles, lit them, and covered them with a jar. In one jar, it was only the candle inside, while in the other jar it had a plant and a candle. The jar with only the candle burned out relatively quickly, although while the other jar with the candle and the plant lasted longer and eventually went out. Priestley learned that from this the jar that had the candle stayed lit for longer because the plant was giving off gases such as oxygen that the flame needed in order to stay lit, while the other jar with just the candle, when it ran out of oxygen, the flame kind of burnt out. Okay, so on this slide, my husband attached two videos. The first video is just a helpful one to watch. It just simplifies everything that we are learning about, while the other video is of the experiment. The first video is about 2 minutes long, and the second video is about 1 minute. And if we click the links, they should work for us. And if not, I'll have my husband attach it once it's uploaded in the comments on YouTube. I think that's how it works. And if not, I guess he'll send it in when he sends this into the class. It's been discovered. Now what? So now that we discovered it, what does oxygen lead to, and what did Priestley leave behind for the world, pretty much? So what does oxygen lead to? The discovery of oxygen was a basis for all scientific revolutions and resulted in many paradigms. The discovery of oxygen was such a new concept in regard to different gases and elements that when playing around and trying to theorize, many things were discovered. Based on the theory of oxygen, X-rays, rust, combustion, and many more things were discovered. What Priestley left behind. Priestley left behind something called the founding of the American Chemical Society. The American Chemical Society is the world's largest science society in the world. It focuses on continuing the discovery of oxygen and all of its elements that the founder, Priestley, could not finish before he died. So what this society is pretty much doing is they are continuing his studies by discovering more elements, new things about oxygen, as well as continuing on his legacy that he couldn't do by discovering this. Applications. So in this area, we're going to be comparing, and then you're going to see why my husband chose this topic. So comparing. When studying oxygen, I learned that if you compare it or study it against different elements, you will seemingly get different results. These results make up very common bonds that we see today. An example of this is when you combine oxygen with hydrogen, you can form the makeup of water. Or when oxygen forms with metal oxide, it forms rust. So you can see here that depending on what oxygen attaches to and combines with, you get a completely different result. Why I or my husband chose this topic. Oxygen is something that keeps every single thing on this earth alive. Every human, animal, and plant needs to breathe in oxygen and get air into their bodies in order to continue their life. This is something that without oxygen, the entire world would cease to exist, which is why this was such an important idea and something that my husband wanted to learn a little more about. We hope that you enjoy the slideshow, and I hope I did an okay job giving over his ideas and his speech. Thank you.